Welcome back, my friends. I'm Markell, and you're listening to Our Stressless Home. If life feels busy and your house feels heavy, you're not alone. Each week, we'll explore what it means to prepare every needful thing and bring God's peace back into the everyday moments that make up home. I'm really excited about today's topic because we're actually going to be going through my simple 4-step process when I help my clients organize their homes. And this is a process that I have developed over years of trying to understand my brain and understand how to best organize my own home, and something that I have used with my clients as well. So this process is pretty simple, but it's incredibly impactful when you figure out how to apply it. So here are the 4 steps. The first step is to prioritize. Second is to minimize. Third is to organize. And fourth is to normalize. So that's prioritize, minimize, organize, and normalize. After I became a professional organizer and got my certifications and started working with other professional organizing companies, I felt like most professional organizers in the companies that I worked for jumped right in at the organize stage. And I think that that just doesn't quite work for most people, especially if you are creating an organized system that you want to maintain long term. It works for a short time and it can look really, really pretty in before and after pictures. Really pretty. Like, who doesn't love watching a space go from absolute chaos to really pretty and put together? But there are so many other factors that need to be addressed if you're going to create systems and structures that are sustainable and maintainable for your family. So I have created these 2 extra steps even before the organized step and a step after the organized step that really creates clarity and also makes it easier to keep things organized. So let's do a little breakdown into each one of these steps and what they actually mean. So the first step is to prioritize. The prioritize step is really about getting clear on what you want and what you envision your space to look and to feel like. But there are a lot of reasons why people find it hard to prioritize what is most important when it comes to their home. So there are some different reasons. A lot of times it's due to overwhelm or having too many choices, a lack of clarity on your goals, maybe different distractions, or thinking you don't have enough time, external pressures, or meeting other people's expectations, or you might potentially have unrealistic expectations of yourself. So let's be honest, when you're going through this prioritized step, if your life feels like a dumpster fire, you don't want to sit down and just think about how you got here, right? You want to put out a fire. And so I understand why people immediately jump into that organized step, because it makes you feel like you're putting out fires, but you're also not considering how the fires were started in the first place, or what you want it to look like after you put out the fire and when you want to rebuild something new. So this step, while it may seem like a waste of time because it's not immediately putting out fires, it gives you a good roadmap forward on what you're going to do and why you're going to do it. This step, the prioritized step, requires a lot of reflection and answering questions, and it requires thinking about what is the most important thing to you. So some of these questions, and these are things that you can listen to and kind of think through in your head, or you can actually come back to this spot and write the answers to these questions, which would actually probably be the most helpful and beneficial for you. But asking yourself questions that sound like this: what do I love about this space that is working? What isn't working? What specific functions does this space need to serve? What specific things do I need to store here? If this space was my ideal space, what would it look and feel like? How can this space support our bigger family goals? What are the non-negotiables for me? What are things that I am doing that I truly don't care about and that I can stop doing? This may seem really simple, and it can be, but it's important for us to understand what we're truly trying to accomplish when we work down onto these next steps of the process. So really taking the time to settle into asking yourself these questions and answering these questions to give yourself a really clear roadmap is going to make it so much easier when we get to these next steps. So the second step in this process is to minimize, which is kind of just a fancy word for decluttering, right? Like I had to make all of these things rhyme together. But it's also a little bit different. I feel like the word declutter, when I hear that word for some reason, it makes me feel like, well, people are telling me to get rid of my crap. And I don't feel like I have crap. Like I very much have emotional attachments to my items, the things that I have in my home. There's reasons that they came into my home and there's reasons that I have kept them there as long as I have. And so this word minimize kind of gives me a little bit of a shift from this isn't asking me to get rid of my crap, because not everything feels like crap to me that I choose to get rid of. But it is inviting me to minimize the things that don't serve the greater purpose that I've laid out in my prioritize step. So it may still be things that are good, things that aren't trash or crap that immediately need to go into the garbage can, but they may be things that don't support my bigger goals and how I want my home to feel. So minimizing isn't necessarily a difficult concept, but it can be difficult if you have a scarcity mindset or really strong emotional attachments to physical items. If this step is hard for you and you struggle to let go of things, like I said, I feel you. I 100% am an emotional saver and I tend to slip into scarcity more often than I would like. And here's sometimes what that mindset can look like. It can sound something like, well, this was really expensive, or I bet I can sell this for some money. Oh, I'll keep this just in case, or this was a gift, or this item makes me think of this time that I went and did this thing that was really meaningful for me, right? There are so many emotional reasons that we want to hold on to our items. So having those emotional ties can make minimizing difficult. I work with clients a lot about emotional attachments to their possessions and how to wrestle with the fear that they won't have enough. So every item needs to be kept. Every client is different, and I allow them to be the one to choose what stays and what goes. I just ask a lot of questions for them to understand and know why they are intentionally keeping certain items. But I never judge anyone for the things they choose to keep or to not keep. This 100% is your space, and you get to live intentionally in the way that you want. So that's not my choice to make. That's not anybody else's choice to make because it's not my house and it's not my stuff. I just try to give clients fresh eyes and help them make that choice on purpose and not by default. So this can also get a little bit tricky when you have different ideas of what your end goal is, especially if you're trying to go on this journey with maybe your spouse or your children, where you have different ideas about what we can get rid of and what we can't get rid of, or what we don't want to get rid of. And that's why getting really clear on that prioritizing step together can make the minimizing step easier, so that you have this common goal together and it makes it easier to be intentional about those decisions. Here is a mindset shift that can help with minimizing. I want you to start thinking about every single item in your home as a job. And does it pay you enough in return for the time, energy, and effort that you put into keeping that job? So you may be looking at a specific item in your home and think, oh, do I want to keep this? Do I not want to keep this? I don't know what to do with this. And ask yourself those questions. The amount of time that it takes me, the energy that it takes me to maintain this item or to keep this item in my home, does it give me back enough in return for me to want to keep it? And that doesn't even necessarily have to be, the answer doesn't have to be that this item is always useful all of the time. You should have, not should, it is wonderful to have things in your home that are beautiful for the sake of being beautiful, or make you happy just because you like being happy. It's okay to keep those kinds of items. Not everything has to be useful, but does it give you back enough happiness or joy in return for the amount of time that it takes to maintain that item? So hopefully that list is kind of helpful and that mindset shift is a little bit helpful. But really taking the time to kind of walk into every room, every time you open a drawer, every time you pick up a different item in your home, to ask yourself, does this give me back enough joy, usefulness to keep this item and to maintain it in my home? Okay, the third step is to organize. And I personally think that this step is actually the most simple. And the steps are basically the same and look something like this. You pull out the items, you sort them, you get rid of unused or unneeded items, you create structures with bins or dividers, you put the items away, you label them. Like I said, it's not rocket science, but here are a few fail-proof principles. Here's the biggest mistake that I think that people make when they try to organize. They try to take on a project that is too big for the amount of time or the amount of energy that they have to put into it. So my biggest recommendation during this step is that you do not need to set aside an entire 8-hour block to go through your entire closet in one day. What I would start doing is either setting a 15-minute timer and working 15 minutes a day in one room until it's completely finished, or picking a small area or one small category every day. So either giving yourself an item limit or a time limit. And this could look something like, say, for example, you want to go through your closet. You can either set a 15-minute timer every single day and do just a little bit every day. Decide, do you want to get rid of something? Do you want to donate it? Try it on, right? Make a decision and donate it. Or you can go through by item. So you can say, today I'm only going to look at my pants and I'm going to go through my pants and figure out what still fits me, what doesn't, do I want to keep this thing? So by giving yourself either a time limit or an item limit, it can help you organize in small spurts. There are a few fail-proof principles to follow when it comes to organizing any space. And here are the few that can be used when you're planning on how to put things back in an orderly way. Number 1, create structure or designated spaces for certain items. 2, use vertical space whenever you can. 3, get items on walls. This is a way to use your vertical space, right? If you can get things off the floor and on the walls, that's a great use of your space. Avoid stacking things on flat surfaces. 5, always pair like with like. 6, know if you're an open container or a closed container kind of person. 7, reduce visual clutter whenever possible. Like I said, this isn't rocket science either, but can sometimes take creativity when applying these principles to different spaces. And different people, different brain types, organize things in different ways. And so a lot of times this comes with trial and error. So if you're finding that you've organized an area, but you're having a hard time maintaining it, it's okay if you have to tweak something or change something. That doesn't mean that you failed. It means that you tried one way and it didn't quite work and it's not quite working, so you can try a different way. So don't view that as a personal failure. And that brings us to the last step, which is to normalize. You've probably heard this referred to as tidying up or maintaining your home, but once again, that doesn't rhyme with the other 3 steps, so I have called it normalize. This step is about creating daily habits or flows to uphold your system. This involves coaching yourself and other people in your household on how to keep these systems running. I like to use some simple rules like don't put it down, put it away, or put the house to bed. Another rule that I try to give myself is that laundry doesn't sit unfolded overnight, or at least rinse the dishes right away so that nothing needs to soak and take longer to do the dishes. These are rules that I try to establish and to live my life by, but I also understand that life happens and I don't expect these to be perfect. These habits are meant to maintain your systems while also giving you the flexibility to not uphold them all the time. They should create structure, but also allow for freedom to not consistently be yelling at everyone and beating yourself up for not getting them done every time. I shoot for my systems to be functional about 75% of the time. This allows me the freedom some nights to snuggle and relax instead of do dishes or fold laundry. It allows me to be human and to create space for human connection rather than to be a robot that keeps a perfectly kept house. But habits are meant to make your life easier and not harder. I have found in recent years that as I've been trying to figure out this normalize step for my family, my young family, right? I've got an 8, a 6, and a 2-year-old, that I really need to get them involved in the process and we need to take it slow and I need to allow it to take time. But I'm also coming to learn that we have some neurospicy brains inside of our house. And so some of these systems don't necessarily work for my family and our brain types and the way that we think and accomplish things. And so I am kind of back to the drawing board in this normalizing step to understand how to work with my brain and with my family's brains instead of working against it. But I'm not necessarily discouraged by this. It's just part of this process and part of trying to create structure, but also allowing there to be fluidity and flexibility. So if you feel like you are trying and trying and trying and things just aren't coming together, I totally understand. And you may need to start to ask yourself the question of, do I just have too many things here that it's hard to maintain it because I have too much? And if that's the case, then you need to go back to the minimize step and you need to start to get things out of your home so that you have less things that you have to manage. And sometimes this step requires, you coaching your family a little bit better, or you developing the ability to ask for help, which can also be a hard concept, especially if that's not something that you're typically used to doing. So we can talk about this in later episodes. Don't get too hung up on it because I'm going to keep working through it with you as well. So I just have to remember that at different seasons in my life, this has looked different. At times when I feel burned out or tapped out, these habits are harder to maintain alone, and I let other members of the house know where and when I need their support. So that's it. Pretty simple little 4-step process, but it's the process that I follow with every single client and that I follow myself. The thing that's amazing about how I've created these steps is that they aren't linear. It's not an easy checkbox 1, 2, 3, 4. I've kind of showed you examples of that where you can go hop back and forth between the things that need to get done, but you don't have to perform them in the same order over and over. So wherever you are on your journey, and depending on your level of overwhelm, you can start at different steps in the process. For right now, if you want to do something, but you really don't know where to start, and you don't have the time yet to really sit down and think through it, I would suggest just starting in the minimizing stage. Start to look at things with fresh eyes and just say goodbye to the few things that you know aren't useful for you. I would suggest that for the next week, after listening to this episode, that you just, in every room that you walk into, in every drawer that you open, just start to ask yourself, is there anything in here that I don't use anymore that I can just get rid of? And start to get rid of it and see how things start to change as you start to lessen the amount of items that you have to maintain and take care of. I really hope that today's episode inspired you to create more peace and presence in your home. Keep practicing intentional living, and I'll see you next time on Our Stressless Home.